welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hey, Tom, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, it's going all right, thanks. Yeah, it's going really well. How's things going with you?
Very well, mate. Very well.
We're all good.
So, I mean, I think we want to just dive straight into this, mate, and just, I suppose, the way we always start this is to give the listeners a bit of a foundation and kind of like how it was that you got into MMA. So how did you get into MMA? Because I'm pretty sure that your dad was quite a big influence in your kind of early start into the sport.
Yeah, mate, it's always a question that I don't feel comfortable really answering because it's very hard for me to say. I guess I can say how I got into it. Maybe when I started is more of a difficult question. Yeah, I got into it basically just through my dad because he was my dad was one of the first jiu-jitsu black belts in the UK. So I've always been around jiu-jitsu and I've always had the view, I don't know, it's just something that a young guy likes, isn't it? Well, I'm every young guy, but it's something that I like certainly is like scrapping, bit of rough and tumble with somebody else. So yeah, it's
I like to watch it. I like to, and when I was younger, I used to like watching like the WWF and all that kind of stuff. But to actually do it is a completely different kettle of fish, I think. So the mindsets that people like yourself have to actually go, oh no, I want to do that. That to me is I don't know. It's mad. I find it quite amazing. So yeah, and do you have a lot of pride in saying my dad was one of the first jiu-jitsu black belts in the UK, or is there pressure that comes with that? Do you feel like, oh, everyone knows my dad's one of the first jiu-jitsu black belts, so if I'm there striking or if I get a submission slightly wrong, they're all rolling their eyes at me or something?
No, to be honest, I don't really I'm not really the type of guy who concerns myself on what other people say too much, to be honest. I really care about the people who are close to me, what they think. Other people, I'm not really too bothered. But yeah, it definitely gives me a lot of pride because, like being a black belt these days, it's pretty common. Like everyone's a black belt really if you do jiu-jitsu long enough. But in them days, it was a lot more difficult to get up to them levels. So yeah, it's important to me. You know what I mean? It's a big thing. It's a big thing for him, definitely.
And you mentioned being young and being drawn to sort of scrapping and stuff, Tom. Was you always someone, even at a young age, that was comfortable and confident with confrontation?
No, I don't really like confrontation, to be honest. Even now, I don't really like confrontation. For me, this is purely just martial arts. It's a sport. When I say scrapping, I don't mean like animosity to one another. It doesn't really mean, like, I'm not really into that. I just like the actual participation of one person versus another person, skill versus skill. I'm not really interested in being angry at somebody or all the rest of that stuff that comes with it. It doesn't really interest me at all, that kind of stuff.
Has that ever got sort of into your head if it's directed at you in kind of like, pre-fight trash talk and stuff like that? I mean, we've been watching your career and obviously you don't seem like the kind of guy that's going to get pulled into sort of dishing that out. But we also see that it is quite a useful way of maybe some fighters fast tracking in rankings and getting exposure. If we look at maybe more recently that O'Malley as getting a lot of attention just because of the way that he conducts himself and carries himself and talks trash and such. Like, has that ever been something that you've ever considered being more kind of vocal yourself in lead ups to fights, and does it ever have any effect on you if it's directed at you as well?
As far as me doing it, I think I'm comfortable to do it as long as it is genuine.
Yeah.
If I have to put it on, like, I think everybody can just see straight through that personally. Like, for me personally, if I'm watching someone that you can tell it's not genuine, I just find it extremely difficult to watch. So I would never, if I actually genuinely had, wanted to have banter with someone or take the piss or I had a problem with them or whatever, like, I have no problem being vocal with it. But if it's just faked, like, I think I would feel uncomfortable doing it, and I think people would feel uncomfortable watching it. So I don't think it would do anything. And if someone did it to me, that doesn't affect me, man. Like, I've grown up around gyms. I've been around a lot of guys. The friends group that I've got, we all rip each other, same as anybody else. It doesn't really. At the end of the day, it's just sport to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just sport. It doesn't mean anything. Like, if someone's talking shit, I don't have a big ego, so I'm not going to be easily offended. So you say what you want. There's nothing off limits for me. At the end of the day, I'm going to go in and do my thing anyway. Like you say, for some people, they've got a massive ego and it'll affect the performance. For me, mate, all that's gone. Like, as soon as I'm in there, I'm enjoying myself and doing my thing, no matter whether I like them or not. It's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I've heard you say in an interview as well that you did a wrestling class when you were about 6 or 7 years old, and you said, and I don't know if you were kind of half joking or not, but you said you basically cried your way through the class. And we had Brett Johns on a while back, who said that he was doing judo from an early age, and he was nicknamed Crybaby in the gym because he would cry a lot. And I wanted to ask you, in terms of like toughness, is that something that you think can be taught as you kind of get older and are in these gyms and doing that stuff? Or do you think it's a genetic thing? Because even though you did say that you cried for a wrestling class, you've still, you've got like your dad's a BJJ black belt and all that kind of stuff. So you would imagine there's a lot of kind of just genetic toughness passed on. Is toughness something that can be taught, do you think?
It's a good question. I don't really know, because I still cry now if I have a bad training session. Like, I've got my ass kicked this week and cried about it. So I honestly don't know. I guess you get used to taking. Is that
a different thing though? Is that like, because I suppose the way I was thinking about it as a kid, because I know what I would have probably been like, is that I would have cried at a physical pain. I probably still would today, but I would, like, if you got knocked over badly, something like that, like, I was the kid that cried. But you're talking about maybe like, I don't know, maybe a certain pressure on yourself or something like that, because you're talking about a session going badly. You're not necessarily crying because someone hit you in the stomach. So, but what, like, is that a different? Do you see that the same way then, in terms of like a kind of physical and mental toughness? Are they linked? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, I think they're quite linked. Like you say, these days I'm mainly crying because I've got I might get beat up in training, but it doesn't really hurt as much. You just get you get more conditioned to the knocks, I think. You just get more conditioned to it. But you do get conditioned emotionally as well, I guess, to taking it. Because at first it's like you start getting punched and threw on the floor and all that, and you kind of I did anyway. I kind of took it personally, like, shit, they're trying to really hurt me. And then after a while, you kind of just think, well, that is the sport, is to kind of hurt the other person. So after a while, it just becomes, for me, I'm only speaking from my own experience, it just became less personal and more, this is what the actual sport is you're trying to essentially hurt one another, so you can't really take it personal.
I read that after a short amount of time in competing in MMA, it looked like you said that you was having trouble getting matched for fighters, and you then moved into boxing.
Yeah.
What made you? Was it purely just that you wasn't getting matched that made you go into boxing? And what was the draw to then go back to MMA and not box?
Right. How long have we got on this podcast?
As long as you
want. Honestly, we can go on for ages. It's as long as you want.
Right. So yeah, being a UK heavyweight is not easy in any stretch of the imagination. Like, it's very tough to find training partners, very tough to find matches, and all the rest of it. At the time, I had quite a long amateur career for a heavyweight. I had 9 amateur fights, which is not that many, but I wanted to have as many as I could. Basically, when in my amateur fights, I think everyone apart from 1 or 2 was unbeaten, because I just thought, if I lose all my amateur fights, it doesn't matter, because you start your record again at pro, so I'm not bothered. So me and my coaches, we just said, look, we're just going to take the hardest amateur fights we can. So basically, I beat all the guys I went 9-0 as an amateur. I beat all the guys who were unbeaten. And then when it come to being pro, then I really struggled to get matched. Even though I was really young, I was still like 20, 21 or something like that. I struggled to get matches. So I was taking matches against guys who were actually a lot better than me and winning still, which made it even more difficult to get matches then.
Yeah.
And then I took a loss early on in like my second or third pro fight, I think, something like that. Like I say, I was really young, which was really good for me. And then I started getting a couple more matches. And then I got matched up against a guy at the time who was really, really like hot at the time. And I beat him. And I got disqualified for the fight, even though I won the fight. This is a whole nother story. This is a whole podcast on its own. So we won't go into that too much. I got disqualified, but I won the fight. And long story short, really, really long story short, I got disqualified. After the fight, some of my friends started fighting with the referee and some of the like security staff, right? So what happened was the video came back. I tried to protest the no contest. Sorry, the loss to a win. But what the referee said is he said it's clear on the video that I was wrong, but we're not going to bring the video out because I was assaulted after the fight. So if you put the video anywhere, you're going to get sued, basically. So basically, I won the fight, but the referee made a mistake. He disqualified me. After the fight, my friends started fighting with the referee and the security. And then after that, the video came out where I clearly won the fight and the referee made a mistake, but he didn't want to admit his mistake because he got assaulted, which is fair enough. And then, well, it's not fair enough. I won the fight and I'm still pissed off to this day, and it was like 5 years ago. Yeah. But anyway, after that fight, I was really pissed off like with the sport, and I couldn't get matched. I was struggling to get matched big time after that. Now at this time, I was struggling.
Probably struggled to get a ref after what your mates did as well.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. The whole thing was just a big mess. It just wasn't good. Like I obviously didn't want my friends that to happen. If that didn't happen,
of course,
if that didn't happen, it would have got overturned and I would have got a win like the day or two after. Do you know what I mean? It was clear as on the video that it wasn't, that it was a mistake on the rest part. But anyway, that's all done. That's all in the past. Anyway, at this time, I was struggling to get sparring. My dad is friends with Peter Fury. I don't know if you know Peter Fury. He is Tyson Fury. He's Tyson Fury's uncle, Hughie Fury's dad. So round about this time, I was struggling for matches and stuff, and I was going to spar with Tyson and Hughie because my dad knows Peter, like we're friends and stuff. So I was in there. I get a fight, it get cancelled. I get another fight, it get cancelled. And all this time, I was in there sparring with Tyson and Hughie and the rest of the guys. And after a while, Peter just said, "Why don't you just try boxing? Why don't you just have a go at boxing while you're struggling for MMA fights?" So I did, and this is a whole nother story again. I struggled to get a license for boxing, for professional boxing. It took me like a year because they didn't want to give MMA fighters a license as a professional boxer with no amateur experience. So that was a whole load of red tape in itself. That's a whole nother podcast again on its own. But anyway, I got a license, had a fight, and I just kind of started seeing that it wasn't any easier for me to get boxing fights as it was MMA fights. At the same time, I was still training jiu-jitsu and wrestling and stuff, and I just kind of missed it. I just kind of missed the freedom of being able to do whatever you want. You know, I was stuck in this rule set of just punching and grabbing each other, punching for every day, and I was just like, oh man, I need more. Like I need more mental stimulation than just punching and grabbing each other. You know what I mean? We need to throw a few kicks in, and I need to take a few people down. And yeah, I just kind of became a bit. I didn't want to do. It wasn't that I became stale with it because I didn't. But at the time, I was still like early 20s. I was like 23, 24, and I couldn't see myself doing it for another 15 years of my life. That same just boxing, just punching and grabbing each other. Like I found it a little bit yeah, it just didn't stimulate me a lot mentally. So yeah, inevitably I went back to MMA and started picking that up then again.
Was the financial implications ever part of them decisions? Because I think famously, you know, there's bigger money available in boxing than there is in MMA at the moment in certain organisations. And was that ever something where you thought maybe I could make more money boxing as well? Or
yeah, it was, but it turns out that, again, this is a whole nother story. But if you're a boxer without an amateur record, you're going to struggle to make money, man. Like for me, for my boxing fight, I had no idea how it worked until I went through all the red tape of getting my license. So the way it works for a guy with no amateur experience and no like Olympic pedigree or ABA pedigree or anything like that is I had to sell tickets, obviously. So I wasn't actually getting paid for the fight. I was getting paid only on commission on tickets. So let's say I sold 50 tickets. Wait, don't make me do maths. Don't make me do maths here. So, yeah, say I sold 50 tickets and they were 100 quid each. So what's that? No, that's too much maths. Anyway, let's just say, yeah, say I sold 50 tickets, however much they were, 50 tickets. And so I had to pay myself, the promoter, and my opponent out of the ticket money. So I actually had to pay my own opponent from my money, which was, like I say, I only actually found this out when I got my license and stuff. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered with it. So I was like, well, I've got to pay my own opponent. And they were like, yeah, you have to pay your own opponent. And then I thought, well, one sec. Well, that means he's not going to try and really win, surely. And then I said, like, how many times is this going to happen? Like, and they said, oh, we can give you a step up in opponents next time if you want. But he wants, I don't know, say the first guy wanted $1,000. The next guy will want $3,000, for example, because he's better. So I said, so do I have to pay that myself for $3,000? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, right, I got to fight for free and I got to pay my opponent essentially $3,000 out of my own money. And they're like, yeah, that's what you have to do. I'm like, well, I ain't doing it. Sorry.
I don't blame you. That
makes no
mental.
sense. Like, I'm going to pay someone $3,000 to punch me in the face for 12 rounds.
Well, it's very odd because I was like, when's someone going to turn up and try and actually beat me? Because that's what I'm doing this for. I don't want to pay someone to come in and, you know, go a couple of rounds and then fall over. Like, I want to pay someone to try and beat me. I might as well go and hit the bag. Like, yeah. I don't want to just do that. So, yeah, they couldn't really give me an answer on that. And like, is this going to be for 5 fights? Is it going to be for 10 fights? Is it going to be 15? And they're like, oh, we don't know. So I'm like, well, peace. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And to the best of your knowledge, if you've got that kind of Olympic pedigree or a strong amateur record, are your finances maybe taken care of by like a sponsorship or something else? And there's a different way of doing it? Or are they still like, if you're Anthony Joshua or, you know, whoever else is doing well in the Olympics and stuff, are they coming through and having a similar situation where their ticket sales are going to their opponents?
No, mate, they won't have that at all. They will, well, they'll sign with first of all, they'll probably sign with a big promoter, won't they, like Eddie Earn or something? They'll like get them on a flat rate straight away. They'll get them straight on a flat rate. And then, like you say, they'll have 1 million sponsors to go straight away. People love the Olympics. And even coming from the ABAs and stuff, like I still spar boxers regular. And like I just sparred a boxer the other day who was an ABA champion. He's just going to turn pro. And like he's getting like 20 grand straight away, like just to turn pro. So yeah, stuff like that is yeah, you just get like, it's really weird with boxing because they made me keep going to different board meetings, which was in like Bradford or something, which is quite far from where I live. It's like 2 hours away. And they just didn't recognize MMA as like similar to boxing at all, which is really odd because I'm like, look, I've had like 20 MMA fights, just YouTube me, you know what I mean? Just watch, see that I can throw punches and stuff. And like they kept sending different guys down to the gym to see if I could defend myself properly and all that kind of stuff. It was bizarre. They really didn't want to give me a license because I was an MMA fighter. Like they don't recognize it as a sport at all.
I wonder if this because they see it as a threat. Because from my personal opinion, I know Stu loves his boxing, but I'm not really that bothered about boxing. I find MMA to be far more entertaining than boxing. I love the kicks and the fact that there's the takedowns, and it feels more like the closest you'll probably get to an actual organized real fight. And you think about the Anthony Joshuas and the Tyson Furies of this world, and you kind of go, but if you're fighting a Stipe or a Tom Aspinall and they go, right, well, I'm not going to box with you, I'm going to take you down, then that's the person that's going to win that fight. So I just think of it as far more entertaining. And I'm wondering if they don't want to give those licenses out to MMA fighters because maybe it kind of legitimizes MMA more and they see that as a threat long term. I don't know. I'm just coming up with a theory off the top of my head.
No, definitely. And I personally think, I don't know about you guys, but the boxing, the structure of boxing, like it's dead in the water, man. Like the way that it's set up, it's ridiculous for a viewer. Like if you watch like an Eddie Hearn show or a Frank Warren show, they say they got 10 fighters on. You can guarantee 10 of those fighters of Eddie Hearns or Frank Warrens or whatever, they're going to be fighting guys who don't even want to be there. Like it's ridiculous. I know you have to have fights to learn, but like say you're 2-0 as an MMA fighter, just for example, you're 2-0 as a pro. You're going to be fighting someone 5-2 or 3-1 or another guy who's 2-0 or something like that. If you're 2-0 in boxing, you're going to be fighting someone 10-37. That's a good guy. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to be fighting. Like it's just ridiculous. You might as well. Like I've been around to loads of boxing gyms, I sparred with loads of top level boxers. I love boxing. And you get these guys acting like the frigging world champions, and they've had 20 fights, but they've not actually had a fight yet. Like it's really like it perplexes me. And then they kind of look down on MMA fighters because they've got losses, and it's like, but they're having actual fights. Yeah, like it's not like you who's going in there fighting a guy that's ready to fall over after 30 seconds. Like all these guys try and do, they're fighting. It's like they're just trying to survive. They're trying to do the 6 rounds and they're not throwing anything back. Like it's ridiculous. Someone's going to get killed doing that stuff. What is going on? How can they expect people to keep buying these boxing shows week in and week out when they're fighting absolute shit? Like it's terrible.
Absolutely. I think like when there was first sort of getting a lot of heat that this side of the water about Deontay Wilder, you see this huge record, and then you just look at the people that he'd fought in them first sort of 15, 20 fights, and they were just put there for him to just make his way through quickly. Yeah,
it's like that with so many. Yeah, and like I say, it's the attitude of the actual boxers, the fighters themselves as well. They just like they think they're so superior because they've got like an unbeaten record, and it's like, but man, you've not actually had a fight. You might have won 20 fights against guys who don't want to be there, but when you actually have a fight against someone else, let's see how you actually get on. Do you know what I mean? It's really bizarre. And as a viewer, I find it very difficult to watch boxing because you can basically know, you know the outcome of the fight before it even starts. It's really weird.
Yeah. Well, let's get back onto MMA because that's what we're all here for. And I want to ask you a question about being a heavyweight, because I want to know kind of how do you prepare your body as a heavyweight? Because there's so many weights you can be. It's not like you're making a certain limit here. I know there is the 265 limit, but like we've had a situation with Stipe Ngannou too a few months back where Stipe was probably about 2 stone lighter than Ngannou, and he's come out saying, for a trilogy fight or for my next fight, I'm going to put loads of that weight back on. And the fact that you can go from being, once you're not going to be 205, obviously, but you technically can be 206 or 207, whatever it is, and then go all the way up to 265. How do you prepare your body for a fight? Do you just go, how do I feel the best? Or do you look at your opponent and go, I'm going to need more speed, so I'll go in at 240 something, or I'm going to need to take him down, so I need to be heavier. I should hit that 265 limit. How do you prepare?
A little bit of both, to be honest. You do have to look at your opponent and think, if you're fighting a massive guy, if you're fighting a guy on the limit, you can't really come in at 210. Like, it's just not going to work out. You're going to have a bit of speed and cardio advantage. It just depends on your style, really. Like, I like to not be too heavy because I feel like my cardio suffers quite a bit if I get too heavy. But then on the flip side of it, you don't want to be too light because you lose strength. So you need to be on that. Yeah. You need to be in that medium place, in my opinion. If you look historically, I know we've got Ngannou at the moment, who's an absolute unit. But if you look historically at the heavyweights, like most of them are around 240, between 240 and 250 generally, the most successful ones. So yeah, it's all well and good being massive, but you got to do 3 rounds at a competitive in a competitive fight. It's not going to be easy carrying all that muscle or fat or whatever you got weighing that much. It's not going to be that easy for you. Carrying that weight and someone else's weight on top of it as well.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I would be very interested to see how Ngannou went after 2 rounds.
Mm.
And you've said that being outside of the UFC as a mixed martial artist was, and I think I'm quoting you directly, shit. What were the big? I'm assuming it's financial stuff, but what were the biggest problems facing you as a mixed martial artist outside of the UFC? And how difficult was it for you mentally? Because I think you've also said that you've had family having to talk you round every now and again because you almost felt like packing it in on a few occasions. It was that tricky for you. So how did you mentally get through those tough times, and what were those biggest problems for you?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good assumption on my part. If you have quoted me there, it is shit. Yeah, mainly financially, to be honest. You just don't have any money ever. I don't think a lot of people, even the people close to me, I don't think they really realize how financially struggling I was at some points. It's like some days, and I'm not over exaggerating. I don't like to bring it up a lot. I don't want to be like, oh, look at me, poor me, and all that stuff, because this was the life that I chose. You know what I mean? I can't complain about it. But like, I've got 3 kids, and some days I essentially like. I don't want to say it without being dramatic, but sometimes because I used to work as like a PT and I used to teach a bit of jiu-jitsu and stuff. Like, I didn't have money to put fuel in my car to go to the gym some days.
Mm.
You know, like that's the level it got to. You know, so some days I had to kind of choose: do I want to go to the gym or do I want to buy nappies for my kid? Like, that's literally
Wow.
the points it got to at some point. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Even like UFC fighters, like we're not, like, I'm making money now, thank God. But it's still a short window of money that you can make. And there's so many, like, I feel like a lot of people get to a really good level. Like, they'll get to like Cage Warriors, brilliant show, Cage Warriors. Brilliant show. Like, I came up on Cage Warriors and I got into the UFC through Cage Warriors. But like, these guys are really high level. They're on the fringe of the UFC. Like, they're right there. But they're absolutely skinned. Like, they've got no money, and a lot of them, that, like I say, they're right there. So they've put the life into it, and it's kind of like, shit, I'm gonna have to do something else, or I'm gonna have to get in the UFC. Like, it's one of the two. That's where I was kind of at anyway. But like I said, like you just mentioned a minute ago, like, luckily I have a lot of people around me who believe in me, because so there's some days I'd come back, you know, I'd have another fight pulled out, I'd have another fight cancelled, I'd be injured or whatever, and I just got sick of it. And luckily I have people around me, like my missus, my parents, friends, and they're just like, look, you've come this far, you can't just stop it now. So luckily I'm so thankful that I've got them people around me.
You mentioned UFC, and am I right in saying that the first time you was offered a contract with UFC, you turned it down?
Yeah, that's right. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I wanted to take it the second time, but
why was that?
Because I don't want to be a flash in the pan. I want to be I want this to be it. You know what I mean? I don't want to fight on any other organisations.
Yeah.
I want to be here for the next 10 years and then retire and enjoy the rest of my life, move on and do something else. I don't want to be one of these guys who I'm not the kind of person who's easily like, I don't know, like, I don't know if starstruck's the right word, but I'm not, like, if it's not right for me, I won't do it. Simple as that. Like, I'm selfish. Like, if it's not 100% right for me, I won't do something because it's better for someone else. Like, that's just not my thing. If it doesn't work for me and my family, I ain't going to do it. So I didn't want to be one of them guys who goes in too early, gets knocked out a couple of times, and then has to fight on the local shows again, and then builds up again. Maybe doesn't make it, and then has to quit. Like, I've put too much time in. I've been through too much stuff to do that. So I wanted to get in and, like I say, fight the rest of my career out in the UFC at the highest level.
That's a really smart and mature way to look at it, though. You know, I think that's really impressive to go, because everybody, I presume most mixed martial artists, the holy grail is to get to the UFC, and to be smart enough in yourself and go, at the moment, I'm not quite where I want to be. I'm going to wait. I think that's a really, really smart move.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the landscape of the heavyweights. Like, I think the first time I got offered, I was like, I don't know, 25, possibly 24. And most successful heavyweights are between 35 and 40. That's usually when a heavyweight primes. So you don't want to be like, even though I'm still 28, you know, I'm still really young, but for a heavyweight anyway, like, it's a lot older than, I feel a lot more mature than I did when I was 24. That's for sure. Yeah. So, and when I was fighting on Cage Warriors again, I kind of, the promoter actually said, look, we can't match you anymore. Like, I had two fights in Cage Warriors, and the matchmaker literally came to me and my coaches and was like, after my last fight, and he was like, look, I had 4 fights left on my Cage Warriors contract, and they're like, we cannot match you anymore. You're going to have to go somewhere else and find something else. And around about that time, the UFC offered again. So we're like, look, let's just go for it. Let's just go for it now. It's the right time. So we went for it.
In a way, I'm not surprised that you're saying that kind of stuff, because you do come across as a very kind of very intelligent fighter in terms of, I heard an interview of you recently, and it was funny, but it was really smart that people were talking about, or you were talking about, sorry, the fact that you don't want like the hardest fights in the world and like to go out in all these wars. You'd like to get paid loads of money, get the easiest fight possible, win, get no brain trauma, carry on with your life, happy days. And I was like, you constantly hear fighters go, I want to fight the best version of this guy ever, and I want to go into a 5-round war, and I want to do all this kind of stuff. It's like, that's the last thing I would do the Tom Aspinall route. I'm like, I hope you're on a really off day. I knock you out really quickly or submit you really quickly, cash my checks, and I'm on with my life.
Definitely. And I think, see, a lot of fighters talk a lot of shit. A lot of fighters have a massive ego. And I just want to be honest. And not only that, let's just take this for an example, right? Weight divisions, for example. If you want the hardest fights possible and you're a middleweight, if you want the hardest fights possible, right, go up to heavyweight and fight Ngannou then. If you want the hardest fights possible, do that. Why are people cutting 20 plus pounds in a week to fight another guy? I know exactly why. So they can be a lot bigger than the guy and have a massive advantage in physicality.
Yeah.
Now, if you want a massive advantage over somebody else, then you don't want the hardest fights, do you? In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
If you want the hardest fights, then fight at the weight you are against another really good guy. Don't cut 20 pounds of your body weight in a week to fight somebody. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm really making sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Like, if you want the hardest fights, then fight at your actual weight rather than cutting down for a massive advantage on everybody. Also, when people call people out, see, I should imagine there are people out there who do want hard fights. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying that I don't. Mm-hmm. I want obviously I want to fight the best guys, but I want to get paid a lot of money for it, and I want it to be for a title, really. If I can have easy fights all the way up to the title, I'll do that. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to. I'm not really interested in getting brain damage if I can help it.
Absolutely. I mean, just to sort of look back on your last fight as well, and you talked about not being starstruck. I know that Arlovski was somebody that you said in previous interviews was quite inspirational, seeing him at UFC Manchester back in the day. I just wonder how it felt being in Octagon, looking across at him, and did any of that kind of awe or respect, was that there, or was it just another guy?
No, mate. Do you know what? I am absolutely ice cold. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I can't even tell you why. When I get in there, mate, I feel nothing. It doesn't, like, it's just another person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a blank face. It doesn't really matter. Like, to be fair, at the weigh-ins, I was like, oh shit, this is Arlovski. But when you get in there, like, you're on a different mindset. Well, I can only speak for myself. Do you know what I mean? I can't speak for everybody else. But for me personally, yeah, I don't feel anything for anybody. That's just. Say, I see it for what it is. It's a sport. It's a fella stood over there with a pair of gloves on. You got your gloves on, and you go and doing the sport. That's what I see it as. I'm not. As I keep saying, I'm not. I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, I'm not into all this egotistical, oh, let's leave it all in there. Let's do, we're going to war. I'm not going to war. I'm going doing a sport that I enjoy. Yeah. I'm going doing my job that I enjoy doing. And when I stop enjoying doing it, I'll go and do something else. You know what I mean? I just see it for what it is, man. It's just a sport. And I think people look into it too much, all this warrior mindset. And, oh yeah, we're gonna. If you're a warrior and you want to go to war, just go in the army, man. Go and shoot people or go to a proper war. Do you know what I mean? This is a sport, and this is my job. I'll do my job, and like I say, when I don't enjoy it anymore, I'll go and do something else.
You said that you feel like a better person when you've got a fight lined up, and that sometimes without a fight lined up, you can go off the rails a little bit. Now, we've had Sean Strickland winning his fight against Uriah Hall recently, and he said something to the extent of, excuse me, if I wasn't fighting in the UFC, I'd be cooking meth and probably in prison. Now, I don't get the impression from you, Tom, that you'd be someone that would be cooking meth and end up necessarily in prison. You seem like quite a nice, friendly, intelligent bloke. But what I was going to ask you is, if you weren't a mixed martial artist, how far off the rails do you think you would go? And also, do you have any theories as to why combat sports in particular seem to be able to save a certain type of person from going down the wrong path?
Yeah. So you're asking me what I would be doing, do you think? Like if I didn't...
How far off the rails do you think? Because you said with a fight lined up, you feel like a better person. So if you weren't a mixed martial artist, if you were in a 9-to-5 job, that whatever it is you would have done if you weren't a mixed martial artist, would you really have gone off the rails? And how far off the rails do you think you would go?
I think I could go pretty far off the rails, to be honest.
Really?
I don't know. It's difficult to say because I don't think the same as it. I could only really compare to what I used to be like before I trained and stuff, and that was like I didn't have any kids in them days. I didn't have like a house and all that's.
And those things, particularly kids, they change you, don't they? They do make you mature and
really ground you.
Definitely. Like I would never. It doesn't matter if I was fighting or not. I don't think I would go off the rails these days. You know what I mean? I'm a bit of a boring guy these days. But I'm from a not the roughest area ever, but not from the nicest area ever. And I wouldn't say I'd go off the rails, be a criminal. Do you know what I mean, or anything like that? Even though a lot of my friends are in jail, a lot of people I know are in jail. But a lot of my friends who I went to school with and stuff, and they're really good people still. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong, but when I was younger and partying and stuff, we used to go in the park and drink, and then we got a bit older, used to go to the pub and all that stuff. When I was 18, 16, whatever I was, you go to clubs and all. they are now, like, we used to go to school and then go and party after school, and then college, party after college, and then now they're like pushing 30 and they still do the same thing. They just go work and then party after work, and it's just like that. It's just like they work in a factory or work as a plumber. Or, I'm not saying these are bad jobs, by the way. I'm just saying these are not jobs for me. These are just not jobs that I'm interested in. And then they just go like pub, sniffing coke all the time, fighting on a weekend, back again, work, pub, sniffing coke, taking drugs, fighting on a weekend, getting arrested. And it's just like that. And I didn't want that for myself. This is like that. I'm from like a pretty small town, and everyone's got like that small town mentality. By the way, I'm not trying to say these are bad people, because they're not. This is just the place where I'm from. That's what people do. And I just didn't really want that for myself. So without the fighting and stuff, it would be, I wouldn't say that I would have done it, because I don't know if I would have, but it would have been easy to do that, because that's what everybody else does.
Do you really enjoy having the sort of structures of being a fighter? Do you find like having that routine and structure kind of keeps your head where it needs to be?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Just waking up, sorting the kids out in the morning, then I go and train, come back, rest a little bit, mess about with the kids, run a few errands, then I go and train again, come back, sleep, and just repeat that. Do you know what I mean? I've got a goal, and I just go towards that. That's why I was saying, like, in between fights when I've not got a fight signed, and I don't have that routine, I'm just a bit like, shit, what do I do? Should I start doing what the other guys are doing? Should I then start going down the pub, having a brawl on a weekend, and staying up till all hours? And then, it makes me a little bit of a better person. Like, I'm a better everything, I think, when I'm training, because my mind is like, I know exactly what I need to do every day. I know exactly when I need to do it. And I've had that many fights now. I know exactly how I need to prepare and what to do and what not to do. I'm not really testing it out anymore. I know exactly what I need from like a training camp. So yeah, it's just when I've not got a fight, I'm just like, shit, what do I do with my days, really? I just don't have anything else, really.
And how is fighting as a dad? Like, you've probably got we know it can be a dangerous sport, and you've got little ones at home that'll be hoping that dad comes home. Or I know your kids are very young, so maybe they don't quite understand what dad does for a living yet. I'm not sure. But how is it fighting as a dad with the thoughts of your kids in the back of your head, but also in terms of like having to go abroad, spending time away from the kids, especially when maybe, I don't know if you had to quarantine after like Fight Island and spend time in hotels just away from the kids. How have you found that?
Yeah, it's like I say, my kids are very young, so they don't really understand. My kids are like 5, and then my oldest son's 5. My other sons are 2 twins, so they don't really get it. But yeah, as far as going away, I've got to be honest, I don't really like going away, but it is getting a little bit easier, I guess. But I still like carrying the burden of, I don't really like being away from the kids and misses and stuff. Like, I like to be there and help out and be responsible and do what I can and all that kind of stuff. But this is what I signed up for. So, a lot this it comes with the job. You know what I mean? You've got to, like, this getting hurt and getting knocked out and getting submitted and getting tired and getting exhausted and getting injured and being nervous and being anxious on a daily basis. This is what I signed up for. Like, you have to accept that. These are the things that you can't, they're inevitable. Do you know what I mean? They're inevitable. You know, one day I'm going to get knocked clean out. One day I'm going to get really badly injured. One day I'm going to get submitted. One day I'm going to get exhausted. One day I'm going to get so emotional that I don't even want to fight. One day I'm going to be really scared. Like, this, you have to accept that. You have to accept this stuff, because if you don't accept it, you're going to be battling with yourself, and you don't want to have 2 fights. You've already got to fight one guy. You don't want to fight yourself as well. So, this is what I signed up for, man. So I've accepted that a long time ago.
All of them things that you just rattled off there just highlights that your chosen profession's a very, very niche and unique profession to pursue, isn't it? Nobody else has them kind of concerns going to work, do they?
No, but you know what? It's just so normal for me at this stage that I don't really think about it that much, you know. I only really think about it like when I'm talking about it. Really, it's not like I don't sit there. It's like you just every time before a fight, I'm in the back and I'm so nervous. I am so nervous every single time. Like,
what's your routine, Tom? What's your routine before you walk out?
I don't really have one, to be honest. I just get the gloves on, wrap the hands, get the gloves on, do a little bit of pad work, try and just stay as relaxed as possible. What I always try and tell myself is like, this is what I signed up for. Like, this is supposed to happen. Like, just relax. Like, don't try and fight, because I spent a long time fighting against this stuff. Do you know what I mean? I spent a long time being like, you can't be scared. You can't be scared going into a fight with someone. Like, no, it's fine. Like, you're supposed to be. Just chill. Just relax. Like, accept that you're going to be scared every time you go in, and you're going to be fine. Don't, like I say, don't have two fights. You don't need to have two fights. You're already fighting one absolute beast. You don't need to fight yourself as well.
Yeah.
Let's just So yeah, I don't. As far as routine goes, like a physical routine, I do a lot of breathing exercises and listen to music, stuff like that. But nothing. I don't have anything where it's like, oh shit, if I don't, I'm going to lose. I mean, it's more just I just try and enjoy myself more than anything.
Yeah. Just out of interest, what music are you listening to? Are you listening to something like, pretty tranquil and calm, or are you literally listening to, full on like death metal to try and absolutely power you up?
No, when I'm training, I listen to like stuff that like pumps me up. Try to anyway. Especially on days like today, man. Friday, I'm so tired, I'm exhausted today. I was at the gym before. I was just like, oh. When it comes to fight day, I don't really need anything to pump me up. My senses are so heightened. Like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's like, again, speaking for myself here, but my body almost like prepares itself before my mind does. So weird. Like, I get, don't know, like you feel pain less than you would usually. And my goes really like tight, man. I don't know. It's only a feeling I get that when I'm fighting. It's like my stomach's like, it feels like it got knots in it or something. I don't know. But it's almost like my body's preparing itself for what it's going to do before I actually do it. It's really weird.
And so what do you make of the heavyweight division at the moment? Like, we've got Garn Lewis I don't know when this episode will be released, but we're a day away from Garn Lewis for the interim heavyweight title. You've got Ngannou that's only 4 months into his reign as the proper heavyweight champion. John Jones is waiting in the wings, bulking up. You've got Stipe at one point might be coming back. So what do you think the heavyweight division is in a really good place at the moment? And how far away, how many wins away are you from really getting in that title picture mix?
Yeah, I think the division is in the best state it's kind of been in for a long time. Like, it's got some really talented guys in the heavyweight division at the moment. As far as me getting up there, it's going to be a few years yet. I'm not really interested in fighting for a title yet. I'm not. I've got a lot to learn, man, before I get up there, I think.
But if you keep winning, is it in your hands much? I mean, like Cyril Gane has only been doing MMA for 3 years. I know he was doing like Muay Thai before that or whatever. But if you beat the next opponent and then the next opponent, then surely you're looking at being in something like the top 5 or 6.
Yeah, possibly.
If you do that.
I don't know. It's difficult to say. To be honest, I don't really look into stuff like that too. I don't really focus on what's going to go on. Like, I try and live for like what's going on today.
Yeah.
I've got my fight coming up soon, and which has not been announced yet, by the way. So I can't really say too much on it. I don't know why it's not been announced, but it's pretty soon. And
we're going to keep you on the line afterwards and try and get some of the juice out of you once you stop recording.
I'll tell you. Yeah, just don't put it nowhere public, because I'll get bothered.
No, we won't.
But I'm just like really focusing on that, and I don't mean to give like a boring answer. But I just focus on this guy. It's not really like that. I just try and focus on really just like what I'm doing, like this week today. Even the fight's still like weeks away, so I don't really think. I just focus on like what have I got to do today and tomorrow, and that's really it. I don't really think like, oh, what happens if I win this? What happens if I lose this guy? This guy beat. I try not to really like delve into that too much.
Well, I'm going to ask you, because it is tomorrow. How do you see the Garn Lewis fight going?
See, Derrick Lewis, for me, is very not great technically, but I feel like his fight IQ is not great technically, but he's amazing tactically. Like his fight IQ is brilliant. It's one of the best in the UFC, and I don't think he gets a lot of credit for it.
Can you explain that a little bit more, Tom?
Yeah, of course. So if you look at his last fight, I fought on the same show when he fought Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades is a lot better technically than Derrick Lewis. Like, he can do everything. He can kick, punch, he knows the range well, he can obviously wrestle, jiu-jitsu, he's got submissions, he's got amazing ground and pound, all the rest of it. But obviously Derrick Lewis knocked him spark out. When I say fight IQ, he chooses his moment. It's exactly when to attack and when not to attack. Like, he chooses his openings so well. Now, on the flip side of that, if you look at Cyril Gane, he fights within what I would call like a safe zone. So he has his techniques, which he does very well. He's amazing technically. And he is really good tactically too. He's like, he won't take too many risks. Even when he's got someone hurt, he won't jump all over him and swarm all over him and leave himself open, which, in my opinion, works into his favour very well when he's fighting someone like Derrick Lewis, who waits for someone to get a little bit sloppy before he starts landing his bombs. So I would say if I had to bet, but I'm probably going to bet on Lewis because it's really good odds. But if someone had a gun to my head and said who was going to win, I would say Gane. But you never know with Derrick Lewis, man. You need literally 1 second and he can knock you out. So I would never really, say Lewis is going to lose really. But I think Gane's a lot better than him.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, we've had you for just shy of an hour now, and I know that you've been training this morning. You've got training this afternoon. So was there anything else you wanted to get in, Blake, before I wrap things up?
No. Do you know what, mate? I've heard you talk on a few interviews, and one of the things that kind of in a little bit of a way is something I need to take on board and help me out a little bit. And I wonder if listeners would as well. You speak really quite beautifully about living in the moment. You kind of referenced it a little bit earlier, but just like your goal seems to just be to be content and to be happy in yourself and your life. And I've heard you talk about that. I think it was in an interview with John Gooden maybe. And I just think it's very easy for people in this day and age of social media and stuff to kind of start looking left and right and start going, no one's able to see this, but I actually said left and right and looked the wrong way both those moments. But you do, I think in the age of social media, you can look left and you look right, and you start to compare yourself to other people. But the way that you speak, it seems like you don't necessarily suffer with that too much. You seem to be very much in like, it's about yourself and your own journey, and you're just focused on what's going to make you content and happy in the long run. And I don't even know if there's a question at the end of this. It's just something that I got from you when you were speaking in other interviews. And I think it's a really brilliant way to see life. I don't know.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, thanks for that. Mate, I've got my flaws, same as everybody else. I've got some massive flaws. But that's the way I try and live. It doesn't work like that all the time, obviously. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I'll be sat on my phone, I won't fucking look up for 3 hours. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I need to change all this stuff about myself, etc. Same as everybody else. Yeah, I try. I mean, my deep side must be coming out in interviews, because a lot of people who know me personally, like they would just think I'm a joker or something. I don't know. I just piss them out all the time. But I'm actually going to ask. I've got something else for you to ask, but I want to ask it after the interview. So
yeah, that's fine.
All
the listeners now, like, what's going on?
Yeah. I've got a private method for you. I'm going to tell you in a second.
All right, that sounds good.
Right.
All right. Well, Tom, thanks so much for your time today, mate, and best of luck in the upcoming fight, whoever it is. We're going to hang around and try and find out. Best of luck, Tom. If people want to keep up to speed with you on the socials and that, where's the best place to follow you, mate?
Oh, you can just get me on Instagram. That's all I really use at the minute. I forgot my Twitter password, so don't get me on that. And
all these other fighters are calling you out on Twitter, and they're like, "He's ducking me. I've just forgot the password, mate."
Yeah. That's pretty much it. So don't Twitter me. Just Tom Aspinall 93 on Instagram, Facebook. I don't bother with it. So I do have a page, but I don't run the page. Someone else runs it. I don't even know who runs it. So if you're going to speak to me on that, probably not going to reply. To be honest, if you speak to me on Instagram, I'm probably not going to reply as well. So just keep giving me the love if you can. Oh, hey, whatever you want. Feel free to say whatever you want. I'm not bothered. Doesn't matter to me.
Tom, man. Thanks
Brilliant.
loads, Tom. Cheers, mate.
Nice one, Tom.
Cheers, mate.
Been
Nice
a pleasure.
one.